The events in this program are inspired by a true story. Names, dates, and details have been changed. Viewer discretion is advised. On this episode of Bizarre Murders, a dyed-in-the-wool romantic who's been doing the online dating thing for a while comes across a profile of an attractive young woman. They start up a flirtation. Her emails and texts are funny and smart. He starts to wonder if maybe he's finally met the one. But the encounter he has is far from romantic. Meet Bill, salesperson by day and aspiring filmmaker by night. Handsome, charming, charismatic. He moves from Florida back to his hometown of Saskatoon, Canada, where he meets his future wife online. She's drawn to his fanciful personality and love of dressing up as fictional characters. Bill also has a dark side. And since a young age, he's identified with the bad guys rather than the heroes of anything he's watched or read. When he discovers a television show about a blood spatter specialist who also happens to be a serial killer, he's finally found someone he can truly identify with.
During the 25 years I worked for the FBI, I came across a lot of real mopes. One thing that always stood out for me was none of them ever thought of themselves as villains. Think about that. No, they were always the hero in their own story. It was the world that didn't understand.
His obsession with the TV show grows. He binge watches the series, reads all the books. He even starts a show-themed online page with the status update which says, "Bill has way too much in common with his hero." Then, one day, he decides to take his TV show obsession to the next level. He begins to blur fantasy and reality in a chilling way. Bill rents a garage in the suburbs of Saskatoon, which he turns into a kill room, just like the one his TV hero has, including plastic-covered walls to catch the blood splatter and the table on which to execute his victims.
By the time we become adults, most of us have seen hundreds of simulated murders on TV. Most people think, well, that's entertaining, and move on with their lives. But every once in a while, some deranged psycho comes along and says, wow, I think I'd like to try that.
This isn't how my life was supposed to end.
Well, this is how it's gonna end.
And cut. Great job, guys. Okay. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Bill makes a short film called The Kill Room. It's about a screenwriter who lures people to his garage to kill them. It's part of his research for a feature-length movie he's making.
We're gonna roll on another take and we'll see how it goes? Yeah. Okay.
Some say life imitates art, some say art imitates life. In this case, it's life imitating TV, and not necessarily all that well.
Soon, Bill finds mere reenactment isn't enough. As his marriage starts to fall apart, his obsession with murder grows. And the more research he does, the more he realizes he embodies many of the traits that serial killers have: emotional detachment, selfishness, and a tendency to lie. He sees a psychiatrist who says he's fine, perfectly normal.
You are such a fool.
At this point, he decides to turn his fantasy into reality and become a real serial killer, just like his television hero.
So here's a man hell-bent on becoming a serial killer, and he goes to a trained professional who declares him normal. It's an odd word to use, unless by normal you mean capable of luring somebody to his garage, then killing and dismembering them. By that standard, oh yeah, Bill is completely normal.
Bill is very familiar with online dating sites. It's how he met his wife. He browses a popular site posing as Diane, a smart and beautiful young woman. It's a bait he hopes will attract some lonely single fish. And it's not long before he gets his first nibble. Meet Rick, 33 years old, recently separated, new in town, lonely. When he sees the online profile of Diane and finds out she wants to meet, he can't believe his luck. He agrees to meet Diane at an address that turns out to be a garage. A little odd, perhaps, but he figures it'll be fine.
Just a little word to the wise. I'm not even saying this as former law enforcement, just as a person in the world with a bit of common sense. If you answer an online dating ad, make sure you meet at a public place where there are lots of people. Do not, listen to me, do not agree to go to a garage in the middle of nowhere.
Hello? Diane?
And if you do that, and if the garage door is open, and if it's dark inside, don't just think, it should be fine, and go in. Use some survival instinct.
Diane? Diane? Diane, are you here?
You are such a fool.
Rick's not going to give up without a fight, but the effects of the stun gun have kicked in, and he finds his legs aren't working properly. Then, Bill pulls a gun.
But it was a toy gun, just a prop. Why Bill would pull a toy gun on someone he plans to kill is anybody's guess. Maybe Bill was hoping to scare Rick into submission so he could finish him off. But he underestimated how powerful the instinct to survive can be. As they say in the squad bay, rookies make rookie mistakes, and Bill was definitely a rookie when it came to killing.
Rick manages to get outside the garage. Suddenly, he finds use of his legs. He makes a run for it. Rick knows if he winds up back in Bill's kill room, he's done for. And miracle of miracles, he sees a young woman out for a walk. Rick survives an attempt on his life, but he never reports it to the police. He simply vanishes. The woman who found him reports the incident, but the police don't take the complaint seriously and never follow up.
It might be hard for some people to understand why Rick would not go to the police after being attacked in a garage by a man in a hockey mask. But never underestimate the power of one of the most primal human emotions. You know the other ones, greed, fear, and lust. But in Rick's case, the big one was shame. He was just too embarrassed to admit how badly he'd been duped.
Bill botches his first attempt at becoming a serial killer in the style of his TV hero. But he isn't going to let that stop him. He begins a computer diary called Mass Murder Files, which describes his crimes in semi-fictional fashion, changing names and some details, but mostly sticking to the facts. A diary that includes the words, "This is a story of my progress into becoming a serial killer."
Why would Bill detail his crimes in a diary on his computer? Because he's arrogant. It's hubris. It's that pride before the fall. So many of these criminals think they're so smart, so much smarter than police. And they're just not.
Just 1 week after his first murder attempt failed, would-be serial killer Bill is back on his computer, creating another bogus online profile. And he soon finds his second would-be victim, a man named Fred. Friends describe Fred as caring and trusting, with a great work ethic and sense of humor.
Trust is a wonderful human quality, but it's overused. In actuality, it needs to be cultivated over time. People are not always who they say they are, and that's never been more true than when you're talking about online communication. Sometimes it pays to be a little suspicious. Like, say, when an online date suggests you meet in a garage in the middle of nowhere.
This time, though, Bill has changed his modus operandi. He tried to taser his first intended victim, Rick, with a stun gun, but Rick managed to get away. This time, he's using a lead pipe with hockey tape around the handle, so his grip doesn't slip when he swings it.
Julie? Julie, are you there? Julie?
This time, he's successful. Fred will not be walking out of that garage.
So Bill failed the first time around, and that person continued to live. And now he succeeded. Congratulations, Bill.
Bill, the wannabe serial killer, now has his first victim. All he has to do is cut up the body, which he does using a hunter's game processing kit, and then dispose of it. After a while, Bill, realizing Fred's friends might wonder why he's suddenly gone silent, decides to reach out to them. Using contacts he finds on Fred's phone, he sends them an email blast. Bill writes that he's met an amazing woman named Julie, and that they've taken off to Costa Rica for a long romantic vacation. The only problem, it sounds nothing like Fred. Roger, who has known Fred for 10 years, becomes especially concerned.
Hey Fred, it's Roger here. I just got your text message. If you can give me a call back, that'd be great, mate. Anytime, thanks.
The two of them are in almost constant communication, and the guy he knows would never leave town without telling him.
Yes, hello, can I speak to a detective, please?
He reports his concerns to authorities. Frustrated that police won't look into Fred's disappearance, Roger decides to take matters into his own hands.
Hey Fred? Fred, you home, bud?
He breaks into Fred's house to see if he can figure out on his own what happened to his friend. Inside Fred's apartment, Roger finds his suitcase and passport.
Hello, yes, I'd like to speak to a detective, please.
Who am I speaking to?
Reported my friend Fred missing. I see his passport here. He couldn't have gone on vacation.
Can you tell me a little bit more?
This time, they take him seriously.
You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to deduce that the nice long vacation in Costa Rica is a complete crock. Well, it's a complete crock. Now we finally see someone using their instincts and not just trusting everything is the way it appears. It's too late for poor Fred, of course.
Hey, Detective Floyd. Thanks for seeing me on short notice.
When's the last time you actually spoke to Fred?
Just the other day. He was really excited.
Detective Floyd launches a formal investigation into Fred's disappearance.
He just told me he met some woman online. He sent me this the other day before he was going on his date.
He learns that on the night Fred went missing, he sent Roger a text message saying, "If something happens to me, here's the address of where I'm meeting my date."
And do you know this woman he was going on a date with?
No, I never saw or met her.
So something did ping on Fred's radar about going to meet a date at a garage in the middle of nowhere. Clearly, he heard a little voice saying, "There's something odd about this." It's just too bad the little voice didn't speak a little louder.
Detective Floyd contacts the owner of the garage that was Fred's last destination, Bill. Even though police don't have a warrant, Bill is only too happy to show them around. He even volunteers to come into the station for questioning.
Mind if I record this, or?
No, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. The reason I brought you in, we actually received a complaint last week, a possible assault in the area of your rental facility. Just wondering if you saw anything suspicious.
No. Just making movies, man. That's what I do there.
Oh, you're a filmmaker?
I'm a filmmaker, yes.
In these types of investigations, with very little to go on, a good investigator has to analyze all the little details. You study the suspect's body language, his demeanor, and you have to remember, this is the same guy who fooled a psychologist and a therapist into thinking he was normal.
What type of movies do you make?
Oh, it's working on a really good script right now.
Yeah? Tell me about it.
It's kind of a personal project. I don't really want to give away the plot.
For now, at least, Bill is eliminated as a suspect. But then Bill makes a crucial mistake. He brazenly volunteers some unnecessary information to the police.
Hey, it's Bill from the garage. I forgot to mention something. Yeah, the other week, some guy was in a hurry to sell his car. He sold it to me for about 40 bucks, saying he was getting hitched by some rich girl who was gonna be taking care of him. I just thought I'd mention that to you.
Can you believe the story this guy is selling? I mean, we're supposed to believe this? If this doesn't make you look real hard at old Bill, I don't know what will. And did I mention he volunteered all of this? Honestly, remember what I said about pride before a fall?
Now the police are on high alert. They issue a TV appeal for the victim of the failed murder attempt to come forward. It's been several weeks since the attack. And now, Rick is finally ready to tell his story.
All the walls were covered in like plastic. This guy comes out and he's wearing this like a hockey mask. He hit me right with the stun gun. I was able to just boot him off. Rolled right under the door and got up and I just ran.
That was over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Why the delay in coming to the police?
I don't know. I was just shocked about it. To be honest with you, I was a little embarrassed. I mean, it seems so obvious now. You know, I'd never even talked to this woman on the phone.
It's enough to get a warrant to search Bill's car and his home. On Bill's laptop, police find a document named Mass Murder Files, a blow-by-blow account of Bill's crimes, right down to every last detail.
Of course, he deleted the file before investigators show up. But when will people realize that nothing is ever truly deleted? Anyway, I'm glad criminals haven't figured this out. I mean, don't tell them, because it's one of our handiest tools. Retrieving so-called deleted files is easy. Just get a police nerd in front of it, we recruit them, and a couple of keystrokes later, boom, we got everything we need.
He describes how he built a kill room with plastic on the walls, the failed attempt on Rick's life, the murder and dismemberment of Fred.
The circumstantial evidence piles up, but without forensics, without DNA, without a body, you got diddly. And that's what these guys had. Diddly squat.
Police set out to build a case against Bill. They search his garage and find movie props including handcuffs, knives, and a movie script which reads as an homage to his television serial killer hero called The Kill Room. Then they find evidence even more damning. Forensics technicians use luminol to detect over 200 bloodstains on the floor. They also find a pair of bloody jeans and a chilling to-do list that contains the item, tidy kill room.
You gotta love that. Typical guy, right? Writing himself notes all along. Tidy kill room. but he doesn't do a good enough job. Don't tell anybody, but they'll never do a good enough job. We get everything. And then he forgets to do his laundry. Oh, and here's another potential note to self. While you're tidying up the kill room, maybe throw out the note that says, "Tidy the kill room."
It's enough to get him arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He never confesses to the crime, but never denies it either. Investigators know he did it, but they still don't have a body. Eventually, after several months in prison, Bill tells them at least where to find Fred's body. In the end, he admits to the murder, but maintains that he killed Fred in self-defense as part of a publicity stunt for his movies.
If you're going to try and pull off a nose-stretcher story like that, maybe don't try to cover it up afterwards. I mean, I'm no Hollywood mogul, but as I understand it, the concept of a publicity stunt is that you actually make it public. The moral of the story? It's important to know the difference between fact and fiction. Bill idolized a fictional TV character and lured men into his kill room with the fiction of meeting their dream date. But the fact is, he committed a heinous crime and was put away for those crimes. And those facts, like all facts, speak pretty loudly for themselves.
On this episode of Bizarre Murders, when Gavin's beautiful girlfriend, Amber, is brutally stabbed to death, Gavin finds solace in the arms of his sympathetic ex-lover, Meredith. But when Meredith is arrested for attempting to murder her husband, Tim, a husband that Gavin didn't even know about, a shocking web of love, lust, obsession, and deceit unravels. Meet Meredith, a smart and ambitious lawyer who's on the fast track to becoming partner. She's been married to Tim, her college sweetheart, for 13 years.
Oh, what a shot. Damn.
But Meredith finds herself a little bored with the repetition of married life. The spark may have faded from their marriage.
Oh, jeez.
But Meredith has plans to light it back up.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
For Tim, it's a bit of sensuous fun.
Guess what this is?
For Meredith, it's something else entirely.
Ooh, soft. Oh, like a feather.
Yeah.
I like this game after all.
Tell me what this is.
Well.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I slipped.
It was a knife!
No, it was a letter.
Get it!
So
Get me out of this!
Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay!
Tim's not okay.
Call the ambulance!
I don't know where my phone is.
What?
Sorry, I don't know where my phone is. I can't find it.
Get me out of the cuffs, I'll find a phone.
Oh, okay, I found it. They put me on hold. The thing that song you like.
What?
Hi, 911. I have an emergency.
I'm bleeding.
There's been an accident. Can you send an ambulance right away? It's critical, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, they'll be here in a minute.
I've seen a lot in my 25 years at the FBI, but someone getting stabbed happens every day. Or maybe, just maybe, there's more to this situation than meets the eye.
For 20 minutes, Tim and Meredith wait for an ambulance. But at the 45-minute mark, Tim insists that Meredith drive him to the ER, or he's going to pass out. What is normally a 20-minute drive to the hospital takes twice the time. When Tim and Meredith finally arrive, he's alive, but weak, in severe agony, and covered in his own blood.
Hey!
Oh, hi. Can you please help me?
What's going on?
My husband, something happened.
Lucky for him, a passerby sees the struggle and comes to Tim's aid. Hospital personnel rushes him to the ER. Minutes later, he's in surgery.
I have no idea what happened. I just found him like this.
When the police speak with Meredith, she tells them that Tim got stabbed at work and came home with his wounds.
I don't know what to tell you.
When no ambulance came, she rushed him to the ER.
Do you know anything? Is he okay right now? Do you know anything?
FBI agents and cops are very literal people, so if you're gonna spin us a yarn, it's got to ring true. The thing to do now is hear her out, hear what she's got to say, and then see if the evidence bears it out. That's Investigation 101. Hope you were taking notes. It'll be on the quiz.
This man found us, and he came and he helped me bring him into the hospital.
But the Good Samaritan tells a different story. He saw Meredith lunging at Tim with a letter opener, so he came to Tim's aid.
If you're gonna try to hoodwink a cop, give it your best shot, but you better hope they've got nothing to check your story against. Meredith figured that Tim wouldn't be alive to tell his side of the story, but he is, and he does.
When Tim wakes up from having the hole in his heart stitched up, he's in no hurry to see Meredith. And his version of the story is very different from the one Meredith told. No, he did not come home bleeding. His wife stabbed him while they were playing a game. She called 911, but no ambulance came. She seemed freaked out that she'd hurt him, but then totally flipped out and started stabbing him again, this time in the parking lot of the hospital. The police have enough to arrest Meredith on suspicion of attempted murder. But they still need to build the case for the trial. Detective Castle is the primary investigator assigned to the case. She carefully combs through Meredith's phone records and finds that she did make a call after stabbing her husband. But she didn't call 911. She called someone named Gavin. Detective Castle does some investigating and finds out that not only does Gavin work at the same law firm as Meredith, but he was investigated in the brutal murder of his girlfriend 6 months earlier.
Making connections is what crime solving is all about. That's what makes Sam Spade's story so compelling. He sees connections other people never would. That moment of insight, that's what you live for.
911, what is your emergency?
I think there's a man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming and some kind of fight.
When the police arrive expecting to find a domestic squabble, they instead discover something far worse. A grisly murder scene. The victim is Amber, a beautiful young woman with an Ivy League degree who specializes in international law. She's been stabbed 20 times in the face, neck, and torso. The wounds are consistent with a sharp, narrow object, probably an ice pick. No valuables were taken. No witnesses. The neighbor who called 911 is nowhere to be found. The police find blood traces on a sink in the powder room and theorize that the person who killed Amber may have gone into the bathroom to wash up, leaving DNA behind. The blood sample is submitted for analysis, but can take up to a year for accurate results.
Whoever committed the crime was likely known to Amber because she let that person into her home without a struggle. Local cops determined this was likely a crime of passion. An ice pick for a murder weapon speaks to a certain level of coldness. It's a very personal way to commit a murder.
Gavin was considered a prime suspect because he's Amber's boyfriend. He's brought in for questioning by Detective Campbell.
Seemed nervous.
The lead investigator in Amber's murder. Throughout the interview, Gavin is emotionless and vacant.
You guys work together, that's right?
Yeah, the law firm.
You didn't have any reason to harm her?
No. If I did, why would I tell you? It's an interesting question.
At one point, he even starts picking at his eyebrows uncontrollably. All of these behaviors send up red flags for the investigators. And while Gavin may look like the perfect suspect,
And where were you on the day she died?
I told you I was at work.
he has an ironclad alibi.
I never left the building.
The law firm has an elaborate security system. Its data backs up Gavin's story.
So Mr. Eyebrows is off the hook for now, but if it were me, he wouldn't be completely off. I'd still be digging into his past because you never know what kind of skeletons you might be finding there.
Six months later, Amber's murder is still unsolved. Now, Detective Campbell, who has teamed up with Detective Castle, brings in Gavin for another round of questioning. This time, it's about his connection to Meredith.
This guy Gavin, he better be squeaky clean because he's got a weird way of violence following him around like a bad smell.
Gavin, can you tell me why Meredith would call you instead of an ambulance?
It didn't really make any sense. The phone call.
Hi, 911. I have an emergency.
I'm bleeding.
There's been an accident. Can you send an ambulance right
Sorry?
away?
Meredith?
At first, he denies really knowing her, but eventually admits to a relationship.
I was seeing her before I met Amber.
You went out.
Yeah, when I met Amber, I broke up with her.
It becomes clear that Meredith wasn't thrilled with their relationship coming to an end.
I guess Meredith didn't take too kindly to being cast aside by Gavin, especially for a younger colleague. Talk about your messy workplace love triangle. I mean, we all know jealousy is a powerful emotion. When it's unleashed, it can have a mind of its own. You remember the bunny scene from the movie Fatal Attraction? Who could forget it?
Amber doesn't know it, but she's now in Meredith's crosshairs. In Meredith's mind, it's not that Gavin isn't interested. It's that Amber is in the way.
Did you know she was married?
No? What?
Meredith's married.
Since when?
She's been married for over a decade.
What's becoming clear is that Meredith is a master of deception. She's created a world of her own and beguiled other people into living in it.
Who's her husband? What is...
It's amazing what people can accept or believe, or how ready we are to take a person's word for who they are and what their agenda is.
Tim, the good husband, believes she has a man-hating sister for whom he has to leave the house whenever she visits.
Oh, come on.
Oh, babe, my sister's gonna be here soon.
Oh, yeah? Oh, I guess I'll go watch the game at the bar then.
Okay.
Gavin, the boyfriend, believes he's spending weekends with an attractive single woman. Meredith has spun an elaborate web of lies, making it possible to live the perfect double life.
So Meredith stabs her husband, claiming it was an accident. And then we learn that she had an affair with a guy at work who traded her in for a newer model, which she didn't take kindly to. And that woman gets murdered, and that crime is never solved. Wow, that's way too much coincidence for me. If I were a betting man, I'd be looking more closely at Meredith.
Having already established means and opportunity, police now have motive. Meredith had been having an affair and wanted her husband out of the way so she could be with her lover, Gavin.
You've heard that expression, open and shut? Well, that pretty much describes the case against Meredith when it goes to court. The prosecution demolishes her implausible and constantly changing story The stab wounds, the witnesses, the phone call to Gavin that proves she never even called 911.
Meredith is convicted for the attempted murder of her husband, Tim, and is sentenced to 20 years. One case might be closed, but police are convinced that Meredith is involved in Amber's death. They just need to prove it. Detective Castle listens to the anonymous 911 call made on the night of Amber's murder.
911, what is your emergency? I think there's a man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming and some kind of fight.
And is convinced that the voice belongs to Meredith. But when the 911 call is put through voice recognition software, the comparison isn't conclusive.
Voice recognition software is a great tool for investigators, but because it's not 100%, it won't hold up in court. Investigators need to find evidence against Meredith that isn't circumstantial. They need something that will give them means and opportunity.
Detective Castle searches the company records where all three people in our love triangle worked. She makes a key discovery. Meredith left work at the same time as Amber did on the day of her murder. Meredith returned 2 hours later.
The first M is motive.
So, court date Wednesday?
It is clear that Meredith was obsessed with Gavin and determined to be with him. Amber was the obstacle. Means. An ice pick isn't hard to get. And Meredith clearly knows how to stab someone because she's now in prison for having done just that. And the O is for opportunity. She had that as well. That security system that proved Gavin was at work when Amber was killed now reveals that Meredith was out. And Amber knew Meredith and would have let her into her home. So we have means and opportunity, but it's still circumstantial and won't necessarily hold up in court. Investigators need a smoking gun, a piece of evidence that places Meredith at Amber's home.
Finally, the blood spatter analysis comes back for the DNA found on the sink in Amber's bathroom. And they found a match. It's the smoking gun the police have been looking for. The blood found on Amber's sink matches Meredith's DNA. This places Meredith at the scene of the crime and is enough to arrest her for Amber's murder.
At some point during the fight, without realizing it, Meredith nicked herself with the ice pick. This is actually very common, especially when the attacker is holding a sharp weapon that is slippery with blood. But when she washed her hands, she left some of her own blood on the faucet. And that's why the DNA results showed Amber's blood mixed with Meredith's.
When Meredith starts talking,
I love Gavin. I just wanted to be with him.
the investigators realize she's one of those rare things.
Like the only solution.
Yes. Yeah.
A true monster
She deserved it. She was making me crazy.
who's played everyone in her life to satisfy her lusts and
I
obsessions.
had to be around them, flirting. It just drove me insane, like seeing them together. Every day at work, like making out in front of me. Unprofessional.
When she lost Gavin to Amber, she set out to get him back, whatever the cost.
How did you kill her?
First, I hit her on the head with this thing and she fell to the ground, and then I stabbed her. I stabbed her multiple times.
20 times.
Was it 20? I don't know. It felt like not enough.
Let's go over it one more time.
I went to her house.
Would you like some water?
I would love some. Thank you.
What brings you by?
Oh, not much. I just wanted to come see your place. man attacking my neighbor. I heard her screaming and some kind of fight. Can you send an ambulance?
After eliminating her competition, Meredith cleans herself up and then heads back to work like nothing happened. With Amber out of the picture, Meredith can have Gavin all to herself. They rekindled the affair, but this time, Meredith isn't prepared to lead a double life. There's only one person standing in the way of Meredith living happily ever after with Gavin. Her husband, Tim.
People who get away with murder once tend to get cocky. An ice pick worked nicely on Amber, but Tim is stronger, so Meredith figures out a way to trick him. But in the end, all she did was lay the breadcrumbs that led the investigators of Amber's murder right to her.
I'm very sorry, okay? I'm very sorry, but I had no other choice. I'm not sorry I did it. She deserved it, okay?
Meredith is sentenced to 60 years for the murder of Amber.
The lesson here? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Meredith may have led the perfect double life and thought she got away with the perfect murder. But like most criminals, your past usually catches up with you. If it hadn't been for this blood on the faucet, she might just have gotten away with it too. Meredith should be free to start a new life in 2089. She'll be 109. Who knows? By then, 109 might be the new 90.